Let's talk about Nigeria, a nation of over 220 million people, brimming with energy, culture, and relentless ambition. For a time, it was the giant of the continent, Africa's largest economy, a military powerhouse, a hub of industry, exporting goods to the world. Its universities produce some of the continent's brightest minds. But the giant is faltering. It's like watching an elephant fall from a tree in slow motion. Today, the foundations of the nation are cracking. The schools are broken, the roads unsafe, the army is losing control, and the hospitals are overwhelmed. Millions are fleeing, and for those who stay, life is a battle for survival. How does a country with so much potential fall apart like this? The world isn't paying attention. The story you're often told is one of simple corruption or poverty. But the truth is far more chilling. This isn't just a series of unfortunate events. It's a systemic breakdown fueled by powerful forces both inside and out. In some ways, it's by design. In this investigation, we will uncover the 4 key forces behind Nigeria's silent collapse, a nation under siege from within, an economy sabotaged by foreign powers, a generation of talent fleeing for their lives, and the geopolitical games that keep the cycle of crisis spinning. This is the story you're not supposed to understand. This is not a war zone from a distant land. This was the village of Yelawada in Nigeria's Benue state. One night, armed men stormed the village, and in a few hours they killed more than 200 people. Homes were reduced to ashes, families annihilated. The government called it a communal clash, but that phrase has become a cynical shortcut. It's a way to downplay a terrifying reality. Large parts of Nigeria are no longer under government control. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to 2009. The name on everyone's lips was Boko Haram, a radical, violent insurgency with the goal of creating an Islamic caliphate. They became infamous for massacres, bombings, and the 2014 kidnapping of 276 schoolgirls from Chibok. The human cost has been astronomical. A 2021 United Nations report found the conflict had led to an estimated 350,000 deaths by the end of 2020. But the most shocking statistic is over 324,000 of those deaths, more than 90% were children under the age of 5, dying from indirect causes like hunger and disease. It is one of the world's deadliest modern conflicts. The Nigerian government responded with military force, but it failed to address the root causes: extreme poverty, unemployment, and state neglect. As the government of then-President Goodluck Jonathan tried to acquire weapons to fight the insurgency, it hit a wall. In November 2014, Nigeria's ambassador to the U.S. publicly criticized the Obama administration for refusing to sell his country the lethal weapons it needed. The refusal was based on a U.S. law banning sales to militaries accused of gross human rights abuses. While the Nigerian military fought with one hand tied behind its back, the violence evolved. It was no longer just ideological. It became a criminal enterprise. A new plague emerged: bandits. Loosely organized gangs, yet armed with AK-47s, drones, and military-grade weapons. They kidnap school children by the hundreds, hijack highways, and extort entire communities for ransom. Where do these weapons come from? Some are looted from the army, others smuggled across porous borders, but no one wants to answer the real questions. Who pays the smugglers? Who protects them? This internal siege has another devastating front in the country's north-central region. What the government labels farmer-herder clashes over land and water have exploded into what many on the ground call a land-grabbing operation by armed Fulani herders. The sense of injustice is palpable. Consider the case of Sunday Jackson, a farmer from Adamo Estate. In 2015, while working on his farm, he was allegedly attacked by a herder with a knife. Jackson, in self-defense, managed to overpower his attacker, who died in the struggle. Jackson was charged with murder. An Adamawa High Court sentenced him to death. On March 7, 2025, the Supreme Court of Nigeria upheld the death sentence, arguing that after disarming his attacker, Jackson had an opportunity to escape and should not have used the weapon in retaliation. So the message this sends is chilling. Farmers are not supposed to defend themselves. The result is a low-grade, undeclared civil war. Over 3.5 million people are internally displaced. Tired of waiting for a paralyzed state, communities are forming their own armed militias. When a government can no longer protect its people, it ceases to function as a government. But what if this insecurity isn't just about bandits and weapons? What if the collapse was accelerated by forces far beyond Nigeria's borders, wielded by men in suits operating from the world's financial capitals? What is happening to Nigeria's economy isn't just mismanagement. It is, as the source text argues, a form of sabotage. The story begins in 1986 with the Structural Adjustment Program, or SAP, imposed by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. To get loans, Nigeria was forced to devalue its currency/public spending and remove trade protections. The goal was liberalization. The reality was devastation. Local industries collapsed, mass layoffs followed, and poverty exploded, pulling even the middle class into hardship. This set back Nigeria's development by decades. By the early 2010s, with oil over $100 a barrel, Nigeria's economy was booming again, becoming Africa's largest in 2014. But it was a house built on a single pillar: oil. When oil prices crashed in 2014, the economy slid into recession. Western institutions like the IMF stepped in again with the same advice: devalue the currency and end fuel subsidies. The government, desperate for funds, began a massive borrowing campaign. According to official data, Nigeria's external debt stood at approximately $41.7 billion at the end of 2022, a significant component of a total public debt stock of over $100 billion. These loans came with strings attached. 2023, the government finally removed the fuel subsidy, a move long pushed by the IMF and World Bank. They called it reform. For ordinary Nigerians, it was a catastrophe. Transport fares doubled, food prices tripled, and inflation hit a 30-year high. The naira crashed, losing over 200% of its value in a single year. The result? By 2022, the number of Nigerians living in poverty had soared to 133 million people, more than half the population. But the sabotage is not just in policy, it's in the pipes. Nigeria is Africa's top oil producer, yet its lifeline is being bled dry by massive industrial-scale oil theft. We're not talking about a few locals with jerrycans. This is a global operation. Stolen Nigerian crude, worth an estimated $5 to $10 billion annually. It's loaded onto tankers, sold on international markets, and the proceeds laundered through financial centers like London and New York. It's an enterprise allegedly involving foreign traders, shippers, and high-level Nigerian officials. This blood oil enriches criminal syndicates. While Nigeria's government faces budget shortfalls, unable to fund the very development and security its people desperately need. When a nation is at war with itself, and its economy is rigged to fail, what happens to its greatest asset, its people? The result is a mass exodus, an unprecedented wave of emigration known in Nigeria as Japa, to run, to flee, to escape. According to one report, over 3.6 million Nigerians may have left the country in just 2 years. Between the start of 2022 and the fall of 2023, it's a staggering outflow of the nation's youth, its professionals, its future. They are running from a system that feels rigged against them, university strikes that shut down education for 8 months at a time, a job market where over half of the youth are unemployed or underemployed, a country where connections matter more than credentials. This brain drain is gutting every sector, but nowhere is the collapse more visible, more terrifying than in healthcare. There is a ticking time bomb that will soon explode in Nigeria, and its name is the collapsing healthcare system. Every 6 hours, 2 Nigerian doctors leave the country. Between 2018 and 2025, Nigeria lost over 15,000 doctors to immigration. They are not alone. In just 3 years, more than 42,000 nurses also left. The numbers paint a picture of a system in free fall. The country's health minister revealed in 2023 that only 55,000 doctors remain to care for over 200 million people. This leaves the doctor-to-patient ratio at a catastrophic 1 to 10,000 in some estimates, a universe away from the World Health Organization's recommended 1 to 600. Some state hospitals have been forced to shut entire wards simply because there is no one left to staff them. Why are they leaving? A doctor in training in Lagos might earn the equivalent of $170 a month. They face chronic shortages of basic equipment and the constant threat of being kidnapped for ransom, as criminals now see medical personnel as high-value targets. The UK alone has over 12,000 Nigerian-trained doctors registered and practicing. Nigeria is effectively subsidizing the healthcare systems of the developed world, losing an estimated $2 billion in its investment in medical education since 2010. The human cost of this collapse is apocalyptic. Nigeria now accounts for nearly 29% of all maternal deaths worldwide. With a maternal mortality rate of over 1,000 deaths for every 100,000 live births, it has become one of the most dangerous countries in the world to have a child. In the state of Taraba, around 200 doctors are responsible for a population of 3 million people. It's not a failing system. It is a system in an active state of collapse. This brings us to the final, crucial piece of the puzzle. When a country rich in resources begins to fall apart, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It becomes a business opportunity. Nigeria's crisis has drawn the attention of global powers, each with its own strategic interests. Let's start with China. As Western investment stagnated, China stepped in as an indispensable partner, offering massive loans and construction expertise for desperately needed infrastructure. The Abuja-Kaduna Railway, new airport terminals, hydroelectric dams, all built with Chinese credit and firms. Chinese partners delivered fast results at costs Western lenders couldn't match. But this partnership has a price. Concerns are rising about Nigeria's debt to China and a trade imbalance, where Nigeria exports raw materials like oil but is flooded with finished Chinese goods, stifling its own industrial growth. Then there is the United States, Nigeria's long-standing complicated partner. The U.S. frames its relationship around security cooperation and supporting democratic processes. Yet, this support is a clear interference. In 2015 election, where the Obama administration was accused of supporting propaganda campaigns against the sitting president, once their desired result was achieved, they commended the peaceful transfer of power. The story of the A-29 Super Tucano aircraft illustrates this complex dynamic. After refusing to sell weapons in 2014, the U.S. finally approved the sale of 12 attack planes in 2017, but the planes, part of a $593 million deal, weren't fully delivered until late 2021, long after Boko Haram had splintered and the security crisis had metastasized into countrywide banditry. For many Nigerians, it felt like medicine delivered after the patient's death. France, too, watches closely, viewing Nigeria as pivotal to the stability of a region where it has deep post-colonial interests. All these powers claim they want what's best for Nigeria. Yet, as long as the oil keeps flowing and their multinational corporations turn a profit, the fundamental drivers of the crisis, corruption, insecurity, and systemic failure, are allowed to fester. The quiet but powerful influence of these international players helps maintain a profitable status quo, rewarding collapse over reform. So this is the full picture. A country under siege from within by terror and banditry. An economy bled dry by a global network of thieves and shackled by decades of devastating foreign economic policies. A generation of its best and brightest running for the exits, leaving behind a nation on life support. And a global system of powers who profit, whether from the chaos or the stability their interventions selectively create. Nigeria is becoming the world's most ignored failing state. The elephant is still falling, and the crash has yet to happen. The paradox of Nigeria is that the very exodus of its talent helps keep the broken economy afloat through billions in remittances. It's a system that is perversely self-sustaining in its own decline. The final question is not just when this will end, but what will be left when it does. Will Nigeria continue to be a nation where its healers must flee to survive, or can it one day become a home they are proud to build and to save? The future of Africa and the conscience of the world may depend on the answer. And don't forget, like the video and subscribe the channel to keep thinking the world how it really is.